Welcome to today's In Conversation session about age inclusion in the workplace. I'm Liz Mayers, co-founder of EDI Accreditation. We are a bit like ISO certification for equality, diversity and inclusion. So accredited measures EDI performance, it provides a kite mark of achievement and encourages best practice in the long term. Because we're impartial, we don't sell consulting or training services, but we found that organisations, once they'd become accredited, wanted to just keep getting better and better. So we built a brilliant community of specialists to help them on the next steps of their journey. I'm delighted today to be joined by a panel of our brilliant community members and network, Sarah, Ian and Chris. And if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourselves, that would be great. Let's go Sarah first.
Hi everybody, my name is Sarah Hayford. I'm the founder and CEO of a social enterprise called the Land Collective, and we support young people from diverse backgrounds with their careers and getting them into the real estate and the built environment industry, an industry that's historically been quite traditional, a little bit of a secret sector and difficult to get into. So we do this through employability programs, insight days, upskilling and training.
Amazing, thank you. Ian, let's come to you next.
Hi everyone, yes, Ian Benjamin. I am a recruiter by trade. Digital Execs is my recruitment company. Small boutique niche company, focuses on digital marketing. I also have a network called the Black Data Professionals Network, and it's a network of mid-level to senior level individuals that are experienced data, digital or tech professionals, 3,500 individuals, predominantly from the UK, and we provide them with mentor programs, training, etc., and also to promote them to inclusive employers so that we can improve the current 4% of IT workers that are Black to increase that number to a more respectable number. And we partner with British Airways, BT, Auto Trader, Salesforce, Great London Authority in doing so. So that's me, really.
Fantastic, thank you. And last but by no means least, Chris.
Thanks, Liz. Hello, everybody. Chris Bantock. I am the founder of the agency Adventure, and we are a commercial support infrastructure for marketing digital agencies, predominantly in the UK. We help them with stuff that normally they've never been trained in. So 90% of agency owners have a passion or a training in something, web development, design, videography, but they've never been trained in running a business. So that is where we step in as guides to help them along that journey of building value into their business, building a commercial operation that meets their goals.
Amazing, that's great. Thank you, Chris. So there's lots of disparaging talk about Gen Zs being entitled and demanding in the workplace. At the other end of the scale, 82% of over 50-year-old job seekers don't even get a response from hiring firms and recruiters. But in just 5 years' time, 47% of the UK working population will be over 50. This week is Global Intergenerational Week, so it seemed a good time to discuss the myths, the stereotypes, and talk about the importance of an intergenerational workforce. And so you three are perfectly equipped to talk about this. First things first, now I personally dislike this one, but I'd be really interested to know what you all think. Is it true that Gen Zs are entitled and demanding? Sarah, you do so much around early careers. Let's come to you first.
So it's a good question. I think yes, but I think it's a good thing, actually. I think that Gen Zs want the same things out of their careers and lives that most other people want. I think what is different about them is how they communicate that and what that looks like in practice. So I'm 30, I'm a millennial, and I think when I was growing up and getting into the workforce, I was kind of taught by my parents, this is how you act. And, you know, if you don't like something, you kind of have to grin and bear it and get on with it, sort of thing. But I think that Gen Z or Gen Z has seen the patterns of people like me, maybe it's their older siblings or people in their family, and they're just like, I'm not going to do that, actually. This really sucks, and that's not good enough. So I think that how that's manifested now is it coming across as quite entitled, or that, you know, this job doesn't match up to what my expectations are, or what was sold to me initially through the job website or through the nice employer branded events that companies are doing that position them in a really nice and fancy way. And I think that they are a lot more demanding about what their careers look like. And I think that can only be a good thing, to be honest. And I think with all the negative talk around Gen Z and how they are, I think it's quite normal, to be honest. I think every generation has had their turn in the media when it comes to kind of the hate train that happens. You know, boomers have it, millennials had it, Gen Z has it. So I think it's just going to continue. And it's kind of just like a cycle. And then you just have to kind of accept what it is, throw the rest out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, guys? What in your experience, Ian, as a recruiter, do you find that do you kind of echo Sarah's sentiment?
Yeah, absolutely. We are living in a new world. Individuals who are Gen Z don't stick around, which historically goes against the grain of traditional hiring practices, where looking at a CV, potentially the employer likes to see stability, and especially when it comes to paying recruitment fees that could be quite, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15,000 pounds, depending on the role. They want to get their money back. They want to get their money's worth. And so they're reluctant to pay fees when someone may be moving on. Also, the other side of the fence, where the older individuals are going for roles and are adjusting their CVs to essentially hide their 20, 25, 30 years worth of experience. They're just, making it a lot shorter. So, and removing dates for when they were at college or university, so that there's no bias against them when they're applying for roles. So it's and I hear it. You can hear it from employers, clients, sometimes, who don't come out and say that they don't want somebody in their 50s, but essentially that's what they're saying. So yeah, it's a really, really bizarre situation. I think upskilling and making themselves attractive to employers through upskilling and having the new cutting edge skills is one way around it, and be more direct in terms of getting themselves in front of the employer directly, so they're going through this, which is, I recommend everyone does that anyway, really, to be fair. Any professionals looking to excel in this market needs to stand out and have different strategies in terms of getting in front of employers. So yeah, it's a world we're living in. People don't want to hire older people, and they're also reluctant to hire individuals that are up and coming, that have moved around to gather more experience. There may well be very genuine reasons. It's not because they just job hopping for the sake of it. They've probably got valid reasons for doing so. So yeah,
Sarah's the millennial then is the perfect hire.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, all right, good. Chris, what about you? I mean, we're both parents of Gen Zs, right? So
Yeah.
we have perhaps a different take on it as well, in terms of the entitled, demanding. I was giving mine a lift at midnight last night, and I was I think those words
I am too. My son's 21, my son's 21 and my daughter's 17. So
yeah.
So black don't crack. I'm older than I look. I'm with you.
No, it is really interesting. I think every generation is brought up in a different way and has different priorities and different learnings, and therefore the way they act is different. And Gen Z is no different to millennials, in that respect, in terms of they've got a different view on things. And these Gen Zs are, they're digital natives. They've grown up with technology. So the way they communicate is different. The way they think is different. The way they work is different. And, it doesn't, they're certainly not in a view where, in the old days, you used to have a job for life, didn't you? That was the way it worked. That doesn't happen anymore. But, it's, so I hold a lot of sort of meetings with agency owners to discuss their challenges. And the last 3, this whole topic has come up.
Interesting.
We're really struggling to how we engage and manage Gen Z. Partly from what Ian said, we want people to stay with us, and because we're investing in them, and and then actually they just go off. But I think it's a very, their world that they've grown up in is a very transient world, and the fact that technology allows you to work wherever you are is something that older generations never had. And it's, so I don't necessarily, it may come across that they're entitled and demanding, and but I think they just have a different perspective that we need to understand. But I think our role is helping them to understand other generations' perspectives as well.
Yeah, I mean, I actually really agree with Sarah. Many moons ago, I remember having a conversation with my ex-husband when I was miserable at work. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I've got to leave. I'd only been there a fairly short time, but the opportunity had been missold. And I was having that whole dilemma about, what's it going to look like on my CV if I've only got this relatively short period of time. And he just went, well, nobody enjoys going to work. 95% of the population hate their job. Just get over it. And I remember thinking at the time, that's ridiculous. That's got to be wrong. We all spend so much time at work. Shouldn't we love what we do? And so in that regard, I actually think the Gen Zs have got it right, because what they're doing is they're forcing organizations to go, why are we holding on to these old ways of working when the world around us has evolved? Like you said, whether it's remote working, why are we insisting that you have to go through this kind of baptism of fire to prove your worth in an industry? I mean, Chris, agency world is notorious for it, isn't it? In terms of getting into the industry, you are expected to do all the rubbish jobs. You're expected to do crazy hours, be there longer than anyone else, and to kind of earn your stripes.
But the whole, certainly the agency model is changing. So that rite of passage, or that route into career progression has changed, because a lot of Gen Zs starting out as freelancers. They're doing their own thing. They're doing what they love wherever they want to do it, and finding work. And agencies' model is changing, because why should we take on board these employees when we're living in a world of complete uncertainty? And it's much easier just to hire in good talent as and when we need it.
Yeah.
So that whole shift in terms of business model is sort of fueling this whole area.
That's interesting. And are you seeing similar things, Sarah, in like built environment and real estate, or is it still more entrenched in kind of traditional ways of working?
I think a large part of the industry is more traditional, but there are some areas that are kind of turn this on its head a bit. So, for example, the flex and co-working side of things within the property industry, they're kind of seen to be a lot more current because co-working is more of a newer concept and things like that. So I think they're a lot more relaxed than having the rigid corporate structures. And I think kind of to follow on from a point that Chris made about, where in the past you kind of had the job for life, but they generally have a different perspective on things. I think that a lot of this boils down to, I guess, the status quo and culture, and the fact that, we can't continue in the same ways. There has to be some kind of shift within workspaces and workplaces to accommodate innovation and things like that moving forward as well. Because, and that could be flexible working, it could be, incorporating side hustles. A lot of Gen Z have side hustles, and we even see it within our community as well. Like, they definitely want to go into the sector and have that as their main job, but they do other things, whether that's, reselling trainers or something, or maybe they want to have, an Airbnb business on the side and things like that. So it's essentially a kind of point where they don't want to live to work sort of thing. So, they're going to get money from their everyday 9 to 5, and then that's going to fuel their passions and things on the side. And I think that that's something that employers do need to take into account as well, because they won't stay somewhere where they don't feel valued or poured into, or that's a toxic environment. Some will. There are lots of people still going into consulting, into investment banking, into commercial law or big law, that sort of thing. But I think the more we kind of progress and move on, that's going to become an issue with hiring in the future if you don't do something about any toxic workplace cultures. And it won't just be Gen Z, it will be millennials and other generations who will decide that, I don't want to put up with this anymore. It's never been easier to start a business and access that on your own or become a freelancer. Not to say it's easy, but the access is there. So I think employers need to grapple with that and work on their cultures as well.
Yeah, I mean, my background is recruitment and executive search for many years, and I was seeing more people coming to a crossroads at that later part of their career when they'd been really successful, they'd achieved the big salary and things, but perhaps from their life stage there was a change. The kids had left home or gone to university, they could downsize, they had different amounts of disposable income again, and different priorities in terms of that work-life balance that we're all talking about. And I think it's actually a lot of our generation, Chris and Ian, sorry, that are now going, actually, I want a bit of what the Gen Zs are doing. I want to do work that I'm really passionate about, and I want to do it in a way that's going to allow me to travel for 3 months, or to work from a beach for 6 months, or all sorts of different things that we're now seeing as possible. I think is shaping the way that the entire workforce is becoming more demanding and just wanting to get that better balance and that happiness across all the different things we do.
I agree. I think people anyway. I think because since COVID, digital transformations accelerated like what we're doing now. People wouldn't have been comfortable talking about things on Zoom, on camera, etc., or Teams, and but so people's values in terms of what's important to them individually as an individual or as a family, and it's life. You can't get, the most valuable commodity is time, and people woke up to that. There was a big shift. People working in the city, they didn't want to work in the city anymore. So I think that kind of made people kind of look at things differently through a different lens in terms of value. And working from home, working remotely, digital nomad passports are now available for people of all ages, different parts of Europe and other parts of the world. And but yeah, it's interesting because it's not suited to all industries. I mean, if you're a postman, for example, or a nurse or whatever, then you can't work remotely as a postman. Do you know what I mean?
No.
So it's really, really bizarre. Really, it's really, really interesting. But those individuals are seeing the digital people or individuals who work in an office environment, seeing how their work life pattern has changed over the last 5 years. So yeah, it's really, really interesting topic. But Sarah's absolutely right. Chris is right. You're right. That we're living in a different world now, and Gen Z has definitely kind of paved the way and kind of shooken things up for employers to kind of change how they were to adapt.
Yeah, most definitely. So do we think we should put all the over 50s on the scrap heap and just employ the Gen Zs then? Or is there is there an argument? Well, I said Sarah's the perfect employee, being a millennial, but what sort of roles do you think each generation brings to the workplace?
Leadership, experience, mentoring, but they're bringing experience, that can't be overlooked in certain industries. I mean, it's difficult to say because it depends on what industry you're talking about. I mean, say new tech coming through from an AI perspective, then individuals that are 50 plus or 45 plus or whatever, you're going to have to upskill to be at the forefront of that. They're going to have to stay on the game to be at the forefront. So it's just kind of like it's subjective based on what industry that the individuals are from. But there's still loads of value individuals can add, from that age. It's not like on the scrap heap as of yet. But I think upskilling, they've got to upskill. If they're in an industry where it's developing at a rapid pace, they're going to have to upskill to be current, to remain current, and to be part of that modern new way of working. They're going to have to. Do you know what I mean? They can't just think, well, I've been here 25 years, everything's okay. They've got to kind of show willingness to upskill, to integrate into the new way of working.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the challenges that's often talked about in terms of remote working is that opportunity for the younger talent that's coming into a business. How do they learn? Because I know my first job, I was like a sponge. Everything going on around me. You hear different conversations. You attend meetings, even if you're not doing a lot at that time. You're soaking it all in and getting experience through that kind of by osmosis, I suppose. So how do we help Gen Zs and the younger generations coming into the workforce to really benefit from all that experience, but still keep their innovation and their different ways of thinking going?
I think to echo what Ian said, I think there's a really good element and opportunity of sort of reverse mentoring happening in the workplace. I think sometimes when we have this conversation, it can very much feel like young people are on this side and older people are on this side. But, we all work in the same kind of workforce and the workplace and things like that. And there's a lot to be learned from both sides, whether it's from perspective, experience, ways of doing things, or even just how you interact with your workplace on a day-to-day basis. Like people coming into the workplace won't always have those same social cues or know when something isn't right or when something isn't appropriate and things like that. And I think that's sort of where that nice mentorship can happen, where maybe someone who's been there a bit longer can kind of take you under their wing and kind of teach you the ropes, but you're also giving them value in terms of new ways to think about things, new perspectives, or what's happening in your kind of area of the world and things like that. So I think there's more of a push towards this reverse mentoring sort of relationship within the workplace that used to really happen naturally. But now I think with topics like this, it's kind of brought in this sense of opposition almost, but we're still all here for the same reasons. We're here to kind of get our money, go back to our families or go back home. and then live our lives at the end of the day. So I think it needs to be more of a collaborative approach towards things where everyone is getting their value in some way.
Yeah. So before people were living to work, now we're working to live. It's a bit of that mentality. Look, I'm so really sorry. I've got a meeting starting in 1 minute, so I'm gonna have to duck out. I'm really sorry about this, but there's nothing I could do. I've got to go.
So much. Sorry about all the technical difficulties that we had earlier on.
So listen, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. The sun is shining, and it'll be great to catch up with you soon. All right, take care.
Take care. Thanks. Well, Chris, I was just about to come to you actually, because I think again, agency, I used to do quite a lot of recruitment in that space, and any creative field was always like, you know, oh yeah, we're really out there in terms of diversity. And I'd sometimes go into these agencies, and you've got with creative agencies particularly, you've got people with pink hair when it wasn't a particularly common thing. You know, we're going back to the 90s now. They weren't wearing suits and ties. They were looking very creative and artistic and cool. And actually, my argument was always, well, that's not diverse, because you're all the same type of different. You might not be mainstream, but where is the person in the pinstripe suit? Where is your, you know, accountant looking person? And we know that one of the benefits of diversity is having all that different input into innovation, into thought processes, into just ways of working and stuff. Has agency world moved on a bit, do you think? Because it just used to be for the cool young hipsters, really.
Yeah, I think it has moved on a lot. I think agency world is probably one of the most sort of open type of sector. Have they gone into the realms of pinstripe suits? Probably not. But you know, are they, you know, embracing neurodiverse people into their agencies and into their thinking? 100%. You know, that, you know, a lot of people are sort of talking about that in agency world. But I think a lot of this comes down to a word you said earlier, Liz: culture. So getting the culture right sets the scene for, you know, the way a business operates, and having that sort of diversity and inclusion central to a culture is key to that. And you're right, Sarah, I love the reverse mentoring approach. I think that it's amazing, because you know the baby boomers have still got a lot to learn from Gen Z, and yeah, that's the only way that people will move forward together, is if they understand those other points of view and other experiences, etc.
I think that's the problem with these narratives that we see in the media when it's the whole, oh, Gen Zs are entitled and demanding. It then creates that them and us mentality that you talked about, Sarah, where people go, oh, well, what have I got to learn from that young upstart? Well, actually, loads, probably, and vice versa. So it's finding that blend. So in terms of diversity and inclusion, I think we all talk quite a lot about different types of inclusion, but age isn't often thought about.
No.
So can you give me some scenarios or some thoughts where you can actually say, you know, yeah, a intergenerational workforce is better and brings benefit?
I think for me, you tend to see it with kind of larger companies and how they operate. So ones that maybe have apprenticeships, graduate schemes, work experience, all the way up to kind of really senior levels of staff who have maybe been in the industry or that particular company for a number of years. So there's clearly kind of like that cycle of kind of legacy planning and learning on both sides there. And so when we get approached sometimes by companies who are a bit smaller, but maybe all of their team members are, let's say, in their 40s and 50s, because they've kind of maybe come out of a larger agency, they started something on their own, and now they've come to us saying, you know, we want to have an apprenticeship program or a work experience program. I think those are really, really good examples and great ways to, again, get that kind of reverse mentorship process going, because they're going to come into the company or the industry all eagle-eyed, ready to kind of learn. And on the older kind of professional side, they're able to impart wisdom and experience onto younger people coming into the marketplace for the first time with the industry. So I think having programs like that kind of bring talent in that are a bit younger, that at the beginning of their journeys don't know anything, but also having elements of upskilling, leadership development for people who are further into their journeys, and just creating a culture of learning anyway, because I think that's tends to be what sets different companies apart from the ones that are maybe really toxic and have cycles where their employees are coming in and leaving straight away or in a few months and things like that. From what I've seen from the companies that I've worked with who are managed to retain staff, not just at the junior level, but at senior level as well, it's because they have a really deep culture of learning and continuing that development and knowing that you don't always have the answers for things and nobody is a finished product. I think those companies tends to do really well in terms of performance too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's there was a survey from Marketing Week, looking at marketeers, not just agencies, but marketeers. And they said that 74.6% were between 26 and 45. That's massive. It doesn't leave a lot of room at the other end. Yeah, at one end you've got people going in, half of the baby boomers are going into retirement or thinking about it. And then at the other end, the Gen Z, there's a big chunk that aren't in the workplace yet. Yeah. So, and it's setting the right environment and the right, that I think you're spot on, so with that sort of learning. And I think Gen Z want to learn. They do want to learn. They learn incredibly quickly, actually. So I think, but every generation's got something to bring to the party. But I think it's harder to achieve that in a smaller business. So if you've got a business with 10 employees, are you going to get that generational, mix within that business? But when you're a bigger organization, then you can focus on that a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's always really interesting to decide what your priority is when you're recruiting. If you are, more so perhaps as a smaller organisation where that team is working very closely together. And I think the culture add versus culture fit. If you go for culture fit and you're a team of 40 and 50-year-olds, you probably think, oh, well, we'll get on better with somebody our own age that's perhaps of similar stage, similar interests and all those things. But actually, it's that importance of understanding what you're missing by not having that younger perspective, or by having the middle-aged perspective or the really old perspective. And for me, I always think it's such a shame that roles are usually determined by age. So you've got someone saying, well, we need 10 years experience.
Yep.
Well, actually, if you've just left college or university, you're not going to have 10 years experience. So it automatically rules out a load of people. But as I said right at the beginning, there's this staggering amount of people that are going to be over 50. 47% are going to be over 50 in 5 years' time. So as we're working longer, should we also be thinking about second careers? And actually, what if I paid off the mortgage, the kids have left home, I'm mid to late 50s, but I've potentially got another 15 years working life ahead of me. Can I get on an apprenticeship to go and work in a completely different sector that I've never explored before? And I think that would be really interesting.
It's like the film The Intern.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro. It was exactly that. You know, he was a whatever he was, 55, 60-year-old bloke going in applied as an intern. It's such a good film. And it addresses a lot of what you're talking about.
I really like that idea, and I think there was a report shared either by a publication or by the government, but it was essentially comparing apprenticeship programs in different countries around Europe and also the US and Canada. And it was essentially saying that apprenticeships and things like that are present in the US and Canada, but they do it very, very differently. So they're not kind of pushed as a career pathway for young people as they are here, but they're more so you need to have, let's say, 10 plus years of experience in something, and then you want to maybe change and go into something else. So it's more of a career changer or a career elevator than more of a career starter program. And I think by adopting maybe the apprenticeship, the way we do things in this country, still have it as an option for young people, but also, you know, the fact that not everybody knows that you don't have to be 18 to do an apprenticeship. You can actually do an apprenticeship at any age. It just depends on the company and how they put that forward. But I think a lot more people who are above, let's say, 21 would undertake an apprenticeship if they knew that the option was there for them to do it. But not a lot of people know that you can do an apprenticeship at a later stage in life. It might just look very, very different. So I think more needs to be done by the government in terms of showing that broad range, especially as we move into aging populations. Yeah, people are going to want to do something a little bit different if they've been in finance for 30 years, 35 years. Doing something maybe, I don't know, in media might be quite fun, or, you know, leveraging their skills in a different way. So I think a lot more onus does need to be put on the later stages of life in your career, because that retirement age is getting further and further away for me. I don't know how long I'm going to be working, how long Gen Z or Gen Alpha is going to be working. So I think what you mentioned, Liz, about, you know, putting some measures in place for that, like how can we keep that momentum going? What can we do to incentivize other people to explore other areas, especially areas with skills gaps as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you see so many questions about, you know, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. I can't bear the thought of doing it for another 30. And that's kind of where we're getting to now, isn't it? So, yeah, I think that's a really interesting one to explore. Do you think, do many of your clients do that, Sarah, in terms of, obviously you focus very much on early years and getting diverse individuals and people from different backgrounds into an industry that has typically been quite traditional. Do you think they, working with you already, they're trying to do something different? Do you think they'd go, oh yeah, actually we'll have a 55-year-old intern or a apprentice, or do you think that's still a bit far off?
I think it's still a bit far off. I think the kind of real estate and built environment sector has always been a very old school one. So even with the whole getting interns who haven't studied real estate, that was already deemed a win. Let alone, you know, interns that, you know, maybe don't even have a degree and things like that. So I still think we're a bit far off, but I do think that we can take leaves out of other large companies' books and see how we can gear it towards our business and different kind of sizes of industry as well. So like a point that Chris made earlier was about, you know, being able to build intergenerational workplace when you're a small company. So it might not look like spending loads on an apprenticeship scheme or graduate scheme because you just don't have that resource. But maybe you can have, let's say, a work experience program for a week in the summer and have advisors to your business who are a lot older that have that experience. So you're not so much hiring them directly, but you still have them involved in your business and your workforce. And the same with the kind of work experience program. They're only going to be there for 5 days, but that's still a great way to give back. So I think it's about kind of taking inspiration from other companies who are doing great things and then trying to gear it towards your business and making it fit in a way that suits you. There's lots of great career returner programs, for example, or ones that are trying to attract, ex-military professionals and things like that. So I think it's taking the inspiration and then tweaking it to see how it might fit for you.
The other thing with work experience, I think, as well, is to rather than just see it that you're doing this young, inexperienced individual a favour, actually, what do you want to get from them? Because, what's your social media presence like? Should you be on TikTok? Should you be, these different ways that, as you were saying earlier, Chris, is just instinctive to that generation. Learn from them. Get some of that expertise that you don't have, perhaps in an or aging workforce, and really harness that. So it's a value add both ways, because I think that's the mindset as well that I think
one thing that's going to impact all of this is just the phenomenal rate of technological change and development. And somebody said to me, technological change is faster than it's ever been before and slower than it will ever be in the future. So it's just going to accelerate, and the younger generation will get their heads around that. AI, I'm still struggling to get my head around it. I can see where it's going, but it's like a jigsaw for me at the moment. There are lots of people out there that have already done their jigsaw. I can see it as clear as anything. I'm still putting the pieces together, but
we don't know they've got the pieces in the right order yet. We might.
Well, no.
We might find out in 3 years' time that actually.
But that is going to have a huge impact on the workplace. It's going to have a huge impact on employment, and what jobs are done and by who.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
I could talk for days. I think this has been really interesting. I think the takeaways for me is that organisations need to start thinking about the intergenerational benefits that everybody brings to the workforce, and blending that, assuming that your the size of your organisation allows you to do it. Take off some preconceived ideas and stereotypes about what youngsters are bringing or not bringing, who can learn from who and who can teach who. And I'm loving the idea of the elderly apprenticeships. I think we need to create an initiative somewhere. Sarah, we'll get our thinking hats on how we can do that. So thank you both so much for being really generous with your time, giving up their time. For anybody that has enjoyed this conversation, there's a whole series about all sorts of different things. It is also Infertility Awareness Week coming up, and there are conversations about how that impacts people in the workplace. We've done a lot of conversations around gender balance in the workplace too. So do feel free, go back, check those out, and just remains to say again, thanks so much, Sarah, Chris. Thanks to Ian, who's obviously left now, but thank you all, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.